So I thought I would give you a better look at what the prints look like once I've pulled them and they've dried. So this is what I would call a strong negative. So I had put the stencils, the geometric stencils, the circles, the baby's breath, the foliage, some of the other things, the twigs, on the plate after I'd rolled up the ink. And this is the first print that comes off of it. So there are voids where the stencils and the foliage are. And what has been printed is the negative space, hence the name negative print. This is the first one that I did, and it has the strongest color because the most ink was left on the plate at the time. This was the second one that came up. So still the foliage and the stencils are creating the white voids. But the color is quite interesting because a lot of the paint has already been removed at this point from the plate. So I'm seeing kind of ghost images and very interesting textures and things like that. And I did a third negative. So this one is very, very light. And it's still got the voids where the stencils and the foliage are, but it's got some really interesting bits where it pulled up the last scraps of paint from around the edges. And this is the one that is the positive print. So at this point, pretty much all the paint's been removed from the negative spaces, the background. I've lifted the stencils, I've lifted the botanicals, and then I've done this print. So this print is picking up the paint that was protected by the stencils and the botanicals. Okay, this series of prints, I think they're kind of interesting. What I did was I rolled up the plate with the paint. I placed onto the plate some of the geometric stencils that I have, the circles, the rectangles, and then I also placed onto the plate some other stencils that I have created which look more like vegetation. They're not actually vegetation, they're just a stencil, but I think they're really kind of neat. It's my favorite weed, bindweed. And I created them on the computer and then cut them on my Cricut cutter in with Duralar. So this is the negative print. This is where everything that's on the plate, the stencils, geometrics, are all creating voids. And what I'm picking up here, oh, there was also some threads winding through here just to kind of create some interest. So what I'm picking up on this first one is I'm picking up all the background areas. So this is a very strong negative print. Now this one is a second negative print, less paint on the plate to be picked up, so it's fainter. And I also printed it on a tissue which already had something on it. And to tell you the truth, I can't even remember what was on it. Something from that same print session. But you can see there are some extra sort of bluish, purplish things. There's a little bit of corrugated texture on there. So a combination of the two ideas. Now by this time, it's getting pretty faint in the background. So what I did then was I lifted the bindweed stencils, the botanical stencils, but I left the geometric stencils in place. And I think this is a very interesting print. I'm looking forward to using this because you'll see that the background areas are quite faint. The paint that was protected by the botanical stencil is a little stronger. And then of course there's voids where the geometric stencils and the threads were left on the plate. So I think of all the ones that I did, this is probably my favorite. And then this one is the positive print. So at this point, everything's been removed from the plate. I have a very, very faint background. I've got a faint after image of the botanical stencils. I've lifted the geometric stencils, and the paint is the thickest underneath those. This is also really strikes me as a very interesting print.